So you're out at a cocktail party with your significant other, or you're the plus one at a wedding reception, and the word is out. You are a professional wrestler. Well, get ready, because these 5 questions are coming for you. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. If you are passionate about professional wrestling, and you're never done learning all about it, then you've landed in the exact right place. So go ahead, join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe down below and ring the notification bell. That way you find out every time I publish a new video. Or if you're looking to take your participation and your support of all things Till We Make It to the next level, consider joining our community over on Patreon. Over there, I publish an exclusive video every Tuesday that you'll never find here on the channel. In addition to which, my patrons get access to our exclusive Discord, as well as live recordings of classes and speeches, essays, book excerpts, podcasts, and so much more wrestling-related content that I've created over the decades. And all of that's available over there, starting for as little as $5 a month. Today, I want to help you to navigate with grace and poise some potentially turbulent social situations. If you're still in your apprentice phase, maybe recently turned pro, then it's possible you've not found yourself in this exact scenario yet. But I guarantee you, you will. And it's coming for you sooner rather than later. It's going to be in some relatively innocuous situation. You're going to be at the summer's end barbecue for your neighborhood. You're going to be around the table for a family holiday celebration, and it's going to come out that you are a professional wrestler. And then the 5 questions will begin. You're going to get at least one of these. In a very unlucky situation, you're going to get all 5 of them, but I want to prepare you for these by sharing with you the responses I have crafted over the years, because sometimes these situations can be a bit challenging to navigate. And although I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, there have been times in my life where I have not really been upfront about what I do for a living so that I could avoid answering these tiresome questions. And I hope by just sharing some of my experience with you that this will go down a whole lot easier whenever you deal with it for the first time or when you deal with it the next time. More times than not, the very first question that's going to follow the revelation that you are a professional wrestler is this one. Someone at the table, someone at the party, someone in the room is going to ask you, isn't that stuff fake? And the way in which you handle that question, the tone with which you respond, that's all going to go a very long way toward dictating how well or how poorly the rest of this dialogue goes. And I know, for those of us that work in wrestling, hearing that said aloud is a real hot button. And I took that down about as thoughtfully as I possibly could in my speech at Ignite Philly 16 called The Art of Pro Wrestling. So luckily for me, I've always got that one in my back pocket if I want to go a little long form. But if you want to nip this one in the bud, here's what I recommend. Is pro wrestling fake? Well, have you seen the Avengers movies? Because just like the Avengers movies, we all work together to create this larger-than-life battle between good and evil, and the ending is predetermined, but nothing I do is fake. What I found is 9 times out of 10, that Avengers quip will nip this one in the bud. Sometimes it doesn't, or in some cases, depending on the temperature of the room, I will switch my analogy and reference Jackie Chan instead, like this. Is pro wrestling fake? Well, have you ever seen a Jackie Chan movie? I'll put it to you like this. Jackie Chan knows who's going to win the fights in his movies, but he still goes out there to entertain you, and the man does all of his own stunts. And you know what? So do I. I have yet to come across a social situation in which either that Avengers response or my Jackie Chan response has failed to satisfy the person asking the question. But then, almost inevitably, question number 2 is quick to follow, which is, don't you get hurt doing that? I certainly appreciate that when someone from outside the world of pro wrestling is asking these types of questions, it can feel as if they are poking a bit at what it is we do, whether it's as our hobby or as our living. And sometimes that will bring out a defensiveness. But that's not the way to go about handling these conversations. It's never going to steer the dialogue somewhere productive. Actually, it's quite the contrary. It's going to take it to a place that will be very annoying to you. So avoid that. When I'm asked the question, don't you get hurt as a professional wrestler? I lean on this response. Oh yes, accidents can happen at any time. It doesn't matter how well trained or well rehearsed you are, accidents can still happen, and they do. So fire off that reply with a cheeky grin on your face, and then, if the person who asked still seems genuinely interested to know more, that is to say, they're not just making banal small talk. You know what I mean? They're not just trying to be polite. They're not just doing what everyone is expected to do at a cocktail party for whatever reason. They really do want to know more. We'll take that as a cue to maybe tell a short story about an injury that happened to you, something you're willing to share, or a funny story about an in-ring accident you think might get a laugh out of the group. In those situations, depending on the temperature of the room, I might tell the story of how I had my scalp ripped open in a pretty gruesome accident down in Nacogdoches, Texas, many years ago, or I'll tell the tale of an old traveling mate of mine who totally wiped out in a puddle of Faygo soda at a wrestling card in Detroit that was produced by the Insane Clown Posse. And whenever you get to the end of your story and you hear whatever reaction it gets from the group, then, in a very lighthearted way, turn back to the person who asked you about it in the first place and say, "Does anything like that ever happen at your job?" And lob the ball back onto their side of the court. So not only does this make you a good conversationalist, but it also shows you're not the least bit defensive about these things. I don't know if this next one is unique to my personal experience, or maybe it's a more widespread phenomenon than I suspect. So fellow veterans of the Mat Wars, let me know down below in the comments if the question that tends to follow, is it fake and don't you get hurt, is this one, which is always, have you ever met The Undertaker? And I mean very specifically, they ask about The Undertaker. Until a month ago, when a 6-year-old asked me if I'd ever met Kane, which is pretty darn close, I had been on a 10-year streak of being asked, have you met The Undertaker? Not Ric Flair, not Antonio Inoki, not Dwayne Johnson. They ask about The Undertaker. And no matter who it is they might be asking you about, know that they're only asking because they want to get to this follow-up question, which is he nice? Now, of course, if it turns out they're asking about someone who you have met, you have interacted with, or even wrestled, well, feel free to go ahead and tell that story. But if not, try this one on for size. Have I ever met The Undertaker? Well, no. He and I tend to travel in very different circles. But I have heard that outside the ring, he's a very nice guy. In my experience, 99% of the time, that exact response will have satisfactorily answered the question they are really asking you. In most polite conversation, if you're able to adequately answer those 3 questions, and you do it in a lighthearted and charming way, well then the dialogue is going to veer off in another direction, and the focus will move to someone else, and you have escaped the dreaded gauntlet of questions. Well done. But in certain social dynamics, like when there's an alpha male in the room who feels threatened because someone's a professional wrestler, or you happen to be in a circle where someone's a little combative about their chit-chat, they might choose to take a jab at you. And when I hear that coming, it takes this kind of form. It sounds like, oh, pro wrestling? Isn't that for hillbillies and trailer trash? And bear in mind, when asked this kind of question, it is not really about the answer. This is about a status move on the part of the person asking. They are trying to place themselves in a position of high status by portraying what we do as something low status. And whenever that pops up, here is how I handle it. Well, no. It's for anyone that likes to cheer or boo or have a good time. It's for every age group, for every income bracket, for every ethnic background, and every cultural persuasion. And once I punch that out, regardless of whether they reply immediately or not, I follow up directly with, did you ever watch pro wrestling when you were younger? Now keep in mind, you're going to get one of just 2 responses to that question. If they respond yes, that they did watch pro wrestling when they were a kid, get ready for them to follow up with a story about whomever was their childhood favorite. And there's always a disproportionate number of stories featuring the Ultimate Warrior and Stone Cold Steve Austin here. But this may succeed in making the whole conversation 1 degree more congenial than it was when they first took a jab at you. And if so, let them get their childhood story out about whomever their favorite was. It was probably the Ultimate Warrior. And then wrap the whole thing like this. Ultimate Warrior, yeah. I beat him. But sometimes I'm not so lucky. They're going to say, no, I didn't watch pro wrestling when I was younger, and they'll usually make a little snide remark there. But regardless of what they say, I use this as my button to get out of the conversation and close. No? That's too bad. But I tell you what, the next time I'm wrestling nearby, I'm going to put you and your entire family on my personal guest list so you can come check it out. You might be surprised how much you enjoy it. Something you may appreciate about that closer, the same way I appreciate it, is this. It allows you to button out of the conversation while asserting a little bit of status for you as you close. And the last of these 5 dreaded questions, which will invariably come for you if you're out there socializing in rooms filled with non-wrestlers, is this one. Oh, pro wrestling, you mean like what Hulk Hogan does? And I want you to know that I do not have a good answer for that one. I still don't after all these years. And guaranteed, Aunt Carol will ask it once again at Thanksgiving. If you have a good answer for that, leave it below in the comments, please, and thank you. I hope that the content of today's video, as well as my thoughtful cocktail party chit-chat pose, have been helpful to you in preparing for the challenges awaiting you outside the ring. But for the challenges inside the ring, I have written Toolbox Building Better Pro Wrestling. My book is available in digital format or print from Amazon.com or over on Audible. I narrate the entire audiobook for you myself.